Hey, welcome back, y'all. So today, this is probably going to be a multi-part video series. What I'm doing today is I am going to be moving on the front oxygen sensor to the rear onto the downpipe. This is an older trick that guys used to use tuning these because it's actually an okay wideband. It's not great, but in the interim, it can serve to help tune your AFRs a little bit better than obviously doing it blindly with the oxygen sensor in the factory location. Because where it's at, and I will show this later, it's actually in the exhaust manifold before the turbo. Why this isn't, while it's good for like low RPM, low load fuel trims, because it's a very short distance from the heads, it gets when the turbo when you get under load and you start getting boost, the exhaust manifold starts seeing positive pressure, and all your readings it basically flatlines and quits reading when about when you get into boost. So you can't use it for like wide open throttle or anything like that. However, if you move it past the turbo, while you lose some of that responsiveness for your low range, your light loads, it allows you to at least do an okay job tuning your boosted range. It's not as good as say AEM or a Innovative or any of the other wide bands, but it's still, a quick, cost-effective way to get going especially if you're tuning yourself in the interim. Because with these, you need, to integrate to the cob, you need to have an I-wire kit, or I think Visconti sells one to integrate the aftermarket wideband in to the CAN bus system so that the cob can read it. Those are pretty, they're like $500 ish, and if you spend a lot of money and time, it can be cost inefficient. I will get a better wideband eventually, but just for now, I wanted to get this going. One of the things you do need to pretty much have to have is an aftermarket downpipe, because if you look at the factory downpipe, you could probably make it work, but you would have to cut this heat shield off in this area somewhere and do weld a bung in there. It's pretty expensive. You probably would almost have to remove that downpipe anyway, because you don't want it after the cats. It'd be even more inaccurate after the cats. And I'll show you once I get tore apart where the bung is on the cob. I actually have an extra oxygen sensor plugged into it right now, because the O2 bung cap that came with the downpipe blew off at some point, not long after I installed it. So probably should have checked that better. But anyway, so I'm gonna get started. I've already got the car up. I'm gonna get the splash shield off, and once I get that done, I'll show unhooking it. I'm gonna have to do some stuff with the wiring up here, because there's a bolt. The wire for the oxygen sensor comes up here, and it's actually bolted down near the head, so to hold it in place. So you gotta get some stuff out of the way to get that bolt done. But let me get going and I'll be back. Okay, so I got the splash shield off, got the oxygen sensor unbolted from the top side and unclipped. I'm just gonna show y'all where it's at. So if you look at the motor, oil pan, exhaust manifold, it's right here, right in front of the cross member. So I'm just going to get that out with a oxygen sensor socket and a ratchet. Once I do that, I will move it up and swap it out with the other one, the dummy one that I've got, and reconnect it. And then I will put the dummy down here and should be good to go. So I'll be back. Okay, so top mount's off. I've already got the dummy down there. I'll show that in a second. But I got the factory O2 right here. Wire goes right here. The connector's actually right here. If you don't have an AOS already, you would have to do some trimming of tape and zip ties to get this wire looser. However, if you have to do that anyway if you're putting in IAG AOS. So I've got it up here. It's actually connected right here. There's plenty of wire. This is the bracket that usually holds it down near the head. I'm actually going to use an extra bolt and just hold it down right there. That way it's not rattling around. It'll keep it up off of things. And let me get my 10mm real quick. I'll just tighten that down. I did have to unbolt the AC line to make it wiggle some, because where the cob has the oxygen sensor is very close to the AC line, and it's almost impossible without getting that wiggle room to get the sensor on straight. So anyway, I've also got it, just kind of held up out of the way with the PCV lines. That way it's not anywhere near resting on the turbo or the exhaust. I will probably go ahead and zip tie this to these vacuum lines just for simplicity's sake. And because this is work for, eventually I will flip-flop this back to its factory location once I get another wideband, but this is a good spot for both locations. And if I zip tie it, that'll keep it from rattling, possibly causing knock, or a false knock. So real quick, just like I said, all I did was take a old oxygen sensor, clip the wires, made a dummy out of it, and there you go. So it's a good note. If you ever have a bad oxygen sensor, don't just get rid of it. You can use it for something like that. Just a little, sometimes being a pack rat is advantageous. But anyway, I'll be back. I'm going to get this all buttoned up and show you what it looks like. All right, well, it's all done. Like I said, there'll be a second part to this video to show how it works out when it comes to tuning. However, I just wanted to show this real quick. Look at my cob here. Turn the radio off. So, if you look, let's just make sure I'm getting into boost. It's not really getting into boost, but which makes sense. The car's not under load, so. Anyway, I'll just do another video here. It'll probably be the one right after this, and by the time y'all see it. But I will show some data logs of before doing that and after to show how it works. If it doesn't work out that well on these newer VA STIs, then so be it. At least y'all know. But if it does work, then that's a good cost-effective interim means of doing that. So, you're not having to do it all at once by yourself. Most tuners, I imagine, aren't going to accept that as a reasonable method. But if you're tuning by yourself, maybe it is. We shall see. So, until next time, I'll be back.